Welcome to the first episode of Launch Punish, a show made for the Tekken community hosted by myself, Core. For those of you who are not familiar with who I am, I reside in Houston, Texas, and I've been playing Tekken competitively for over 7 years. The purpose of the show is to give insight about popular trends within the community and also discuss topics about the game and its players. On this episode, we'll take a step back into the past and talk about the tournaments I attended earlier this year. We'll be kicking things off discussing Final Round and then Texas Showdown as well as Toryuken 2. We'll also be discussing the current state of opinion about the game and the communities on a global scale. I'll share my opinion about Korea versus United States, and we'll analyze match videos of top players and dissect their strengths and weaknesses. We will uncover truths and facts about the Tekken scene, and I will share with you pro tips on becoming an elite. But before we begin, I must thank a few people for making this possible. The Jin Studio for making this project a possible venture, and every one of you at home watching this for the continuous support and efforts to grow our community. I would like to address the state of the game in my personal view. I believe Tekken Tag 2 is one of the harder fighting games played, and the amount of knowledge, practice, and experience one needs to gain to be consistent is tremendous. Every decision you make in the game comes at a risk, and it's up to you to be able to have a better read on your opponent's next move to progress. The juggle damage is insane. You can lose a character in the beginning stages of a match if you are launched just once, after taking a few poke damage. Health and rage forces players to become aware of their attack and movement patterns and adjust them accordingly. This is why I petition for a 3 out of 5 change on Tekken Tag 2. To be able to render quality results and overall determine who played better, 3 out of 5 is essential for Tekken. It's an unforgiving game and you have to play unforgiving, but it's loads of fun and rewarding when you do win, which is why I love it at least. It's the versatility of the game that makes it so rewarding. To the newer players, do not ever feel discouraged. Online is a completely different game than offline play, and I strongly urge online players to get out and compete offline. Even if you have the best connection, it's not the same. Online may provide a sense of confidence in your fighting strategy, but if it's not tested offline and practiced regularly at sessions, you can be downloaded in less than a few games. It is much better to form a strong fundamental-based game with blocking, movement, consistent punishing, and then branch off into discoveries, tricks, mix-ups, and setups. To the newer players, you cannot expect someone to take you into their shadow. Some people feel they cannot teach well, others don't want to share, and some don't even know how to explain what they're doing. No one is going to hold your hand, and it's up to you to ask directly and take a stand to become a better player. Use practice mode to perfect execution, throw breaking, punishing, and movement, as well as the core fundamentals. Everything else is left up to you to make it out, call, and train with ones in your neighborhood. I believe every character can win in this game, and I suggest newcomers looking up videos on YouTube for their respective characters to get a guideline on how the best are playing their characters. Look especially for the punishers they choose to use, the low, mid, fairly safe pokes they choose, as well as a little less safer but more damaging mix-ups. Then learn how to set up your pokes and set up your mix-ups. This will teach you to take control away from an opponent during a match, and utilize most turtle moments by placing an attack to condition an opponent. Once you have conditioned them, do the opposite. You have to think fast, one step ahead of your foe, and this can only be given not through practice mode, but through real life experience. So go out, participate, play, and level each other up. Remember, you'll only be as good as your competition, and once you have conquered your neighborhood, expand outwards until you reach the top. Now I'll talk about Final Round. The last weekend in March in Atlanta hosted the largest Tekken event for Tekken Tag 2 Lifetime in the United States. From California to Texas, Florida, Washington State, New York, Maryland, Michigan, Tennessee, most every top player from their respective regions came out to compete for the Pimp Cup. The results? America showed the gap between our Korean competition. I believe that the 2-year head start they possess over us plays a vital role in experience and gameplay confidence. The money matches were hype. I kept you in the loop of what went on in the killing room, but tons of money matches ensued after the tournament, which gave USA a chance to fight their own. I thought the player of the tournament was JDCR. He completely dominated every match he played, and even crushed Knee in the grand finals, a feat that not many Tekken players can withhold. JDCR definitely proved his high level of understanding and experience of the game. And if we were to isolate a United States player who deserved an honorable mention at Final Round, it would go to Little Majin. He played it through perfectly, with precision and accuracy in executing his jaw-dropping setups. He put ATL Anakin in the losers bracket and eliminated Fighting GM. The new school has made a statement at Final Round this year. Speed Kicks, a young prodigy, showed an impeccable defensive strategy similar to that of Anakin, but with Harang Jin's keep-out game and strong mix-up tools. He had a nail-biting loss against Knee, which he should have won. A good match, but he forced Knee to come in and alter his usual defensive whip-punishing strategy playstyle, which is really good. Run It Black, another new school player, a pretty loud kid with a lot of energy from California, playing Jinpachi and Jin. After placing second at SoCal Regionals, at Final Round he managed to take out Pokechop early and show that he can be a threat to the Killers in the upcoming future. I love Final Round and I love ATL, and I thank you all for the hospitality when I was down there. Anakin, John, Richard, Shin Blanca, Josh, and definitely, while a salty tournament for me personally because of my performance, it was a learning experience. It is the second Final Round in a row that I placed 9th place, and losing to a New York player and then an ATL player right before top 8, I feel it may be a curse. Now for those of you still wondering how I can still play on my broken pad, I still haven't gotten it fixed, and I have not made the switch to a PS2 pad yet. I killed myself in my match against Anakin, and failing an input and a really unsafe move came out, and it happened quite a bit. I probably should take care of that pad pretty soon. Next, I would like to take an in-depth look at certain matches at Final Round this year, just to highlight how I think we should have approached different offensive or defensive playstyles. We should always try to implement both styles during any match. A strong defense means you use spacing and movement to lure opponents in and punish them accordingly. Movement is key to getting whiffs. Backdash cancel is completely necessary in this game in my opinion. It makes a huge difference when you have an opponent chasing you, or you can open up space freely, quickly, and at any time. Sidewalking is a necessity to be able to make attacks whiff too, and also realign your opponent's spacing, movement, and move selection. Most top players utilize single steps up close, or may only sidewalk when an opponent is approaching. Blocking is also key to getting punishers. Movement and blocking together gives you an advantage to make your opponent do what you want him to do and take control of the match at any time. A player like JDCR implements this style perfectly, so does Knee, but he is more of an offensive turtler, someone who goes on offensive less, but aims for a larger chunk of damage through move placement in their attacks. The first match we'll analyze from Final Round is JDCR versus Little Majin. JDCR stays in control at all times and utilizes his backdashing to lure in Little Majin. Look how he relies on Majin to make incorrect guesses against his defensive and offensive timing. Notice how JDCR is sidewalking after most safe attacks on block. Little Majin is getting out of his comfortable space and is forced to go in. Majin doesn't show control in the match in the slightest bit, and his instability of this makes him make careless errors like punishing, tagging incorrectly, and using moves out of habit. JDCR is implementing a range game, movement-based strategy with precise reads on single hits and whip punishment. He is definitely taking his time in this match. Lil Majin should have played the match a little more offensively, but a safe offensive. He should not have allowed the space to open up against JDCR. He could have used safer pokes and short rushdown tools like crouch dash neutral 4 and down forward 2 to break momentum and take some control in the match. Once he has JDCR a little more cautious by implementing this, he may have opened up with a good range tracking tool in his face to prevent him from walking around. Lastly, JDCR loves to backdash cancel to make whiffs, and he will stop once after backdash canceling, maybe do a single step. Instead of taking a safer option and back away simultaneously from JDCR, Majin should have been more aggressive and taken the risk of going all in with fast safe tracking moves like down forward 1s and down 4s while standing 4s. Majin is able to show off his unique throw timing though, which he doesn't fall short of doing, but falls short of a victory just by a few mistakes. The next match I want to analyze and kind of compare the both of them is Lil Majin versus Fighting GM. Fighting GM is a United States player. We see Majin gaining control early in the matches, and GM having to catch up and adjust his playstyle to Majin. And notice when Majin is in control, he is on the offensive with simple 1 or 2 chain attacks, a mid and a low. GM tries to fight through Majin's attacks rather than spacing against his attacks. When Majin backdashes, GM goes in and does not hesitate to use his fast pokes to gain control, but he gets edged out by patience and harder damaging hits. And a fantastic display of skill by both players. And I just wanted to contrast the level Majin played against GM, and in comparison to his match with JDCR, spacing is the name of the game, awareness is the name of the game. If you are able to control space and be aware of what your opponent is doing, half your battle is won. And learning to immediately block while moving as an opponent approaches you is some of the key habits of JDCR's game. Many US players control space very well, Majin being one of the best. But against Koreans, we tend to freeze up and try to adjust their game and movement rather than trying to play safe and effective. Puerto Rico's Kano did not disappoint in our final round this year either. His team, while unique, put AGE Fab in losers and then getting eliminated by Fab in the fight for top 8. ATL's Anakin impressed the crowds with his flashy juggles of the Double Jack team, taking out Japan's AO convincingly and placing behind Majin after losing to Nii. Incognito, debuting his Bruce Bryan team, put Japan's AO in losers. Incog's playstyle impressed me, and I respect his ability to read an opponent. His execution and movement is on point too. Much props to California. California also brought out KL with his own unique playstyle, making a solid showing at final round. And from what I've seen, he has great reads on offense. His defensive reads, like sidestep timing and spacing, are not as strong, but he's a great player though with intense determination. The tournament was really stacked with top players, from mid-tier to old school, new school learners from all over the nation, a lot of who had a chance of placing in the top 8. Clint the Beast was on fire with his double bear team. His patience and ability to set an opponent up for a mix-up were insane. His patient playstyle is something that is commonly seen with the old school players. The new school players develop a more offensive strategy. But overall, final round was a really good learning experience for all of us, and I was talking to Incog about this. If we were able to train with each other who are at our skill level more consistently, we'd be able to kill bad habits and improve systematically. Because of the inequality and variances in skill per region, it makes it hard to steadily improve, like how Korea and Japan do on a constant basis. Now, preceding final round for me was Texas Showdown and Toryuken 2. I tried implementing a little from what I learned at final round and played slightly differently at these tournaments. I learned that taking advantage of every opportunity and going in, setting up for an offense bluntly, will cause an opponent to freeze up, and that's what I want. I want them to crack, and when they do crack, I punish them accordingly. It's definitely not an easy style to practice, but I stayed determined to wanting to learn this way of playing. Now, Texas Showdown was a fun tournament, and it was some sort of a reunion of Tekken Arena and also MLG when the game just got released. After being to several major events for this game, I can comfortably say that the Texas players have a completely different playstyle to the rest of the country. It's more comfortable to fight against as an offensive playstyle. but it's a lot harder to crack their defense. I must give shoutouts to Storm of Kicks, a Houston 15-year-old new school prodigy, meeting Harang and Lee. Watch out for this kid, he is going to make waves in the future. Also JoJo with Ling Alyssa and the Ling Lei team for his 3rd place. JoJo is not popularly known in the scene, but he has been a high-level Houston player for years, and recently through the hyperbolic training with the now retired AV2K, JoJo is approaching a top-level status. Cheers to Electrical Steve for 2nd place. Electrical Steve's execution and speed makes him a dangerous player. With Heihachi on top of that, it's quite a scary experience. Other players in Texas and Oklahoma, like Raybone Killa, performed really well and is showing that the Lone Star State and other states can hold their own in the nation. I would like to see the Texas scene grow even further. We need players from all around our cities to train with one another and gain more experience. The more variety we can gain in playstyles and matchup experience, the less chance we have of losing elsewhere. Now to talk about Toryuken 2. Man, I'm still thinking about how awesome Toronto is. It's a beautiful city. I made it down there for the first weekend in May with Empire Arcadia crew for their major, Toryuken 2. The level of Tekken in Canada was very surprising for me. It was almost like the more matches I played against them, the stronger they became. The Montreal players like Shift and Potato Brain are unique in the sense of their choice of moves in certain situations. Attacks you wouldn't really expect at certain times, but it works out pretty good for them. Potato Brain had a lot of basic Yoshimitsu setups, but they were very effective. He earned himself 3rd place, which was the best placing for a Canadian. Now, Canada overall lacked very important fundamentals, and one fundamental they lacked was punishing. They missed whip punishes often and did not punish unsafe moves correctly, giving up a lot of damage. I believe if they work on learning the cast more and getting the matchup experience they need, they can become a much more scarier force. Now GM was the champion of this tournament and completely annihilated my game plan against them. I should have played more defensively and utilized backdashing and more keep out tools against GM. But instead I went in for the kill and guessed wrong most every time. I let his momentum build and his confidence settle and did not adapt fast enough, completely changing 180 degrees of my playstyle. Oh well, that'll be next time. Now Canada's scene was not too big. The tournament had a little under 40 people total. It was much fun to see the unity and pride each region in Canada had when they came together, though. They supported each other as a single nation against the USA's players. All in all, everyone was super nice and hospitable. Canada rocks. Thank you Neil Russell, Montreal crew, Toronto players, and it was good seeing some old friends like Gurav. Now looking into the future, we have UFGT, CEO, EVO, VXG, and much more going down towards the end of the year. Plenty of these events coming up. We get to see new top players popping up, consistent winners or regions, and new powerful tag teams. International competition will be participating at EVO this year too, and there's our chance for redemption from final round. Now at EVO I'll be defending my 2011 championship in what I will think will be the hardest tournament to date for Tekken Tag 2. But I have done it before and I strongly believe I can do it again. I have to constantly improve by playing at my skill level and rising through ranks, eliminating bad habits and enforcing very little room for mistakes. As my favorite saying goes, attain perfection. I want to talk about other things trending in the community currently. Of course, Tekken Academy is a growing Facebook group for Tekken players around the world to connect, arrange online matches, and also share tips and strategies of the game. On behalf of Anakin and myself, I want to thank the moderators for doing their best to keep order and peace with the Academy, and I also want to thank each and every member for their continuing efforts to help one another, share something of interest, and enlighten us with the diversity of opinions. Like I mentioned earlier, it's up to you as an up-and-coming player to reach out and get their experience, ask the questions, and even find a mentor you can look up to and learn from. Also, there are great resources online to keep players interested and let them practice tournament nerves and adaptation of short sets. The IFL, the Iron Fist League, Queen of Iron Fist, online gameplay, and other small competitions give newer players a cutthroat tournament simulation of what to expect in the big leagues. The future is really bright for Tekken in our nation. I urge everyone to encourage other players who may be on the fence about getting competitive to get in there. Tekken Tag 2 is a structurally balanced game and it rewards the more confident player. If you know someone who has the drive to get better, take them under your wing and train with them consistently. Even if you are playing someone nowhere near your skill level, the game allows you to explore and practice other avenues of your gameplay such as juggles, your wake-up options, punishers, and also create new technology. Remember, play to learn, not to win. The winning will come after. Make sure there's a reason to why you do everything too in the game. Another hot topic in the community, Scary Mashed Potatoes or SMP has started a team, Perfect Input, for the mid to top level player who just can't seem to edge out a top placing at a major. PI, Perfect Input, Cody, Trungy, Bloodhawk are some of the names that are included in this group. This is a great idea, by the way. Fernando, aka EMP the Game, defeats Fighting GM and AGE Fab at Civil War this year. Much props to my EMP brethren. Next, I'd like to take a brief look at the Tekken scenes around the world and see their activity with Tekken Tag 2. I try to stay in contact with players around the globe. It's always interesting to know that there are people like you who share the same love for the game but exist on another continent with a whole lot of different competition. Starting over in Japan, with their top players using characters that we've seen grace the higher charts of tier lists, their playstyle is more offensive to Korean, and they are not afraid to go for anything, which makes them dangerous. Players like Nobi, Yu, Deku, plus a large pool of mid-tier players who are able to get wins because of the way they play the game. All in or nothing, commit completely to attacks. Jumping over to Australia, I know they have their Shadowloo Showdown tournament series, and I do know Rami over there, the Creddy player from there. I'm not familiar with their top players, but I do come across YouTube videos of their tournaments to see the level of their play. Going back into Asia, Chinese Tekken scene is a force to be feared. According to Sean Hugland, aka Tizite, who resides in Shanghai, he feels that there are players that are rivaling the top US players, but don't take the game as seriously as we do. Like Korea and Japan, the arcade culture is popular in China, and you may have some businessman stop in after work before going home for a few games, and he is the kung fu master of Tekken. I'm also under the impression that Nanjing is the city to visit for the best Tekken competition. Not to exclude, Taiwan also sent players to compete in Korea not too long ago with impressive performance. Now traveling west to Europe and the UK, most of the USA players who have been there and have formulated an opinion about the level of skill does not doubt the amount of top level players that are in Europe. This past UT Ultimate Tournament in January, it was Bodhi, an Italian JC Leo player, who took out AGE Fab and got second behind JDCR, plus taking a game from JDCR in the grand finals. But not able to close it out successfully, but he showed an extensive level of skill in his play. I noticed players like Asim also in the UK, he's a very strong player. I would definitely like to see and have a chance of connecting and playing against them. UK, France, Germany, Italy, and more in future tournaments. Now that I have my US passport, traveling should not be a problem anywhere. Now moving on to the Middle East and India and Pakistan, I connect a lot with these players on Facebook. I enjoy talking about their scene and the progression of their top players. Shout outs to them. Now heading down to South America, one must recognize the Venezuelan players. They are a group of devoted gamers hungry for recognition. I hope to travel there later this year to be able to play Fuko in a Bob vs Bob vs Bob vs Bob match, and also others like El Negro and Jackson 5. The USA players who played the Venezuelan players described their playstyle as unorthodox, unpredictable. Sounds interesting. Now Peru is also having a major event in October. Argentina, Colombia, Chile, and more will be attending. They have invited me to join this event. I hope I can make it out to check out their scene. Now moving north to the islands of St. Martin. VXG is around the corner, and I can't wait to see the players who I had met during the Tekken 6 era. Now playing Tekken Tag 2. Shoutouts to players on the island and those coming from the Dominican Republic, Trinidad, and whatnot. You guys have a strong scene with good players, and this year is going to be off the chains. And of course, I have to give a shout out to my South African Tekken players, where home is where the heart is. Now, as we move across the globe, we don't see a trend of powerful characters that dominate most regions. Surely, we may establish Mishimas are the best characters in the game, but throughout the world, unique teams with new technology and insane synergy persist to pop up. Just another example to show the balance and versatility of Tekken Tag 2. Finally, stepping into the United States, looking at this chart, our top players are widely spread out and may only see each other maybe 3 or 4 times a year. It is the job of those with a fortunate and flourishing scene like California, Texas, New York to bring in new blood and bring up new school killers, which is happening right now. Mid to top level players are vastly frequent throughout, ranging from those who remain the same skill level in the past Tekkens, and some who've taken a buff or even a nerf. But the great thing about Tekken Tag 2, that it's brought out some of the old school players back into competition, creating more drive for the newer school to learn and take over. Unfortunately though, due to many reasons, some mid-level players lack a good scene where they live, and are unable to rise above, even though they show immense potential. Examples areas like Oklahoma and Florida, for example. The diversity in characters and playstyles are quite vast, and it is always enjoyable to watch tournament streams for Tekken Tag 2, just because of the sheer surprise element it can offer. Also, on a personal note, I really like that females are showing a lot of interest in Tekken. It's definitely much kudos to you girls for having a passion for such an aggressive video game. The Queen of Iron Fist tournament, an online tournament series, showcases an all-female competition. And we see the second Queen of Iron Fist competition won by Cuddlecore from Illinois. The last thing I want to talk about is a discussion that came up after final round about Korea and their level of Tekken players and the USA. Now, in my personal opinion, and I honestly believe Korea and Japan have always been better Tekken players than the USA. There's no denying it. They have the resources, the motivation to be top players, and they stay at the top. They continuously improve one another with extensive competition. In the US, we are able to beat them in shorter sets as we did in the past because of our playstyles. It throws them off slightly. With slight adjustments over time in longer sets, they may show their dominance. Now, it's not about overcoming yourself or taking Asia competition off a pedestal. It's more about watching, learning, and taking in what we can learn from them and add it to your own playstyle. I believe every Tekken player at final round who was not from Korea could have learned so much on how to win in this game from watching them play that weekend. Well, that's all I got for this episode, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and please continue to add Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to YouTube.